Have you ever thought about where your produce comes from? Most grocery chains receive produce from various local and national farmers. In fact, there are about 3.4 million farmers in the United States today. But of that staggering number, only 45,000 are Black farmers. At the Better Buggy, we are a proud group of Atlanta-based Black-owned farmers, selling produce locally and nationwide. Our easy-to-navigate online platform makes it easy for you to make a one-time purchase or to simplify your life by subscribing to our weekly produce box. Whichever frequency you choose, you can order with confidence, knowing you'll receive 100% organic farm-fresh produce. If you're looking for a thoughtful gift for a loved one that they'd actually find useful, be sure to pop by our online store where you can snag a gift card your recipient can use to order their own produce and t-shirts. Ready to start supporting local Black-owned farms and making healthier food decisions? Visit thebetterbuggy.com now to start shopping.
When it comes down to home ownership, it has been quite a journey for people in the Black community. You know, we've been faced with redlining, towns burnt down, losing homes and property to eminent domain. You name it, it has happened. You know, redlining has been probably one of the most detrimental things to happen to the community. So this came out on NPR going over racism in home ownership. So I'm going to play this audio for you. It is 44 minutes long, but I am definitely not going to, I'm not going to play the entire 44 minutes.
In Los Angeles that no longer exists. The story of Sugar Hill brings to life many of these ideas we just talked about: segregation, racist covenants, and who has the right to live where. Here's producer Janaki Mehta. This is what Ra and Van Nickerson's childhood home sounds like today.
Where the freeway is now.
Right here, this overpass?
Yeah, that's what Berkeley Square was.
What she's pointing to, right there where that sign says quarter next 3 exit. Lift it up, our house is right about there.
And their house is now where the Santa Monica freeway is. Van was just 3 years old. His sister Ra was 4 when their family moved here almost 70 years ago. They lived in a charming little pocket of central Los Angeles called Berkeley Square.
The street was very wide. We had the old style lanterns. There were all kinds of like craftsman houses, 5, 6, 7 bedrooms.
So these were big houses.
Very big. And we sold lemonade at the east end of Berkeley Square.
And we got our wagon and we'd go up and down the street selling lemonades.
Right.
Berkeley Square was part of a larger neighborhood called Sugar Hill, which was named after a wealthy Black section in Harlem. By the 1940s, Sugar Hill was home to some of the most prominent figures of Black Los Angeles: doctors, entrepreneurs, oil barons, even Hollywood stars like Gone with the Wind's Hattie McDaniel. On screen, she may have played a housekeeper or an enslaved person, but here in Sugar Hill, she hosted extravagant soirees in her sprawling mansion where people like Duke Ellington and Ethel Waters would perform. This thriving community in Sugar Hill existed despite a powerful tool that white residents were using to keep neighborhoods white: the racially restrictive covenant. Ra Nickerson remembers her dad explaining this to her when she was really young.
Well, my father would talk about covenants. As a child, I worked with him in his real estate business, and covenants were alive and thriving, you know? He would show me documents, and he would show how the covenants were worded. No blacks, no Jews, just blatant hate. And it was everywhere.
Everywhere in the U.S., including in Sugar Hill. These covenants were basically agreements written into property deeds that made homeowners promise never to sell to African Americans or other minority groups. In 1940, 80% of the properties in Los Angeles had these restrictions attached to them. And courts helped enforce these rules. But some white homeowners willingly violated these covenants to sell to Black buyers, in part because those buyers were willing to pay more since there was less property available to them. The first known Black person to buy a home in Sugar Hill was Norman O. Houston. He knew very well at the time that he was defying a covenant attached to the house he bought in 1938. Here's Ivan Houston, his grandson. He recognized things that were unfair, and he felt he was as equal as anybody, and nothing should hold him back. So he kept pushing as far as he could push, but legally. But as more African Americans moved into Sugar Hill, one white homeowners association didn't like what was happening. So they sued their Black neighbors for violating these racially restrictive covenants. Hattie McDaniel, Norman Houston, and dozens of other Black families fought back with their own Black homeowners association. They created the organization called the West Adams Heights Protective Association. Before it was called Sugar Hill, it was the West Adams Heights District. Ivan Houston still has this old notebook that belonged to the association. Okay, let's see. The meeting of the West Adams Heights. The pages are all browned with age. The handwriting is in this tidy cursive. That's the book of the minutes that, Granddad was the president of the group. It has all the minutes of the restrictive covenants, the redlining, and the meetings to start changing the restrictions. Those meetings to change these restrictions, they went on for years. But then on December 5th, 1945, the parties entered a courtroom. Legal historian Amina Hassan says that day, you could see wealthy Black Angelenos dressed to the nines.
Hattie McDaniel and hundreds of sympathizers appeared in court in all their finery. This is what a reporter said. The stylish atmosphere in the court was such as to make one wonder if the judge would pour tea during the afternoon recess.
This crowd had shown up not only to see the Hollywood stars, but also to take in the legendary NAACP lawyer Lauren Miller, who argued their case.
His presentation was electrifying, and the people were waiting for a good show, and I believe they got a good show.
Miller argued that racially restrictive covenants were unconstitutional because they violated the 14th Amendment, which mandates equal protection under the law. And remarkably, that argument worked. Hassan says this victory was about more than simply winning the right to stay in Sugar Hill. It was about giving Black people in Los Angeles access to a better life.
Housing was the crux of it all. It opened those avenues for them to move beyond the one part of Los Angeles designated for Black people. They could have their children in better schools, and they could find jobs in the area. Housing opened the door.
Eventually, the Sugar Hill case in California paved the way for a 1948 Supreme Court case, Shelley v. Kramer, which would ultimately deem racially restrictive covenants unenforceable nationwide. At the time, that victory felt momentous. To Ron Nickerson, it meant maybe the system could be used to help Black people live where they chose.
You don't make waves, but you quietly use the legal system. You quietly talk with your brethren, and you systematically, step by step, but you kept your focus. You knew that it was necessary for Black people to live where they wanted to live.
But it didn't take long for Ra and her brother Van to learn the two of them wouldn't actually be able to live where they wanted to live. A few years after Shelley v. Kramer, rumors began to spread that the government intended to demolish Sugar Hill to make room for a freeway as part of a federal push in the 1950s to modernize America's roadways. Black residents in Sugar Hill banded together again. They headed to the state capitol and lobbied against the freeway project. But this time around, they lost their fight to stay in Sugar Hill.
All right, I'm going to stop right there. Ladies and gentlemen, they have used that freeway excuse multiple times to eliminate Black towns or any location where a lot of Black people live. This is how they did it. All of a sudden, they need a highway there. And they did this to virtually every single Black town that ran up and down where you see I-95 on the East Coast. That's where all of the Black towns were. And they got bulldozed down so they could put in I-95. And this is just something that they have used over and over. It's just amazing that highways always need to go where Black people live. It's just amazing. But as you could see, our forefathers had to fight like hell. when they purchase homes to even survive in those areas. You know, it's just never a moment of peace, and people are seriously tired of this entire system. You know, you can't keep a system if you don't have that many supporting it. And each year rolling by, especially now we're getting closer and closer to the end, you notice a lot of people are frustrated and they hate this system. They hate the system altogether. But y'all tell me what you think. I mean, I've heard these stories growing up. I remember when they were putting in the airport in Philly, they wanted to expand it. Guess who got pushed out of their homes? It was a side of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it was a big fight, you know, in the city. The city had offered to give them, I think, like $10,000, and some people took it and left, and some people did not. They wanted to fight for their property, but ultimately they lost, and the airport took over all of those properties where the Black people live. You know, a lot of people don't know, a lot of like malls and airports and, you know, all types of any type of strip mall. A lot of times, go back and research that area where they put these big facilities. You will find a lot of Black people lost their homes. More normal than unusual, that's for sure. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.